All right, this is how we will make a sample for gathers. Gathers are a way of drawing up one piece that's much larger to fit a smaller piece. In this case, we have a sample piece that is about 5 inches wide, 12 inches long, and the piece we're going to sew it to is 3 inches by 6. And gathers are little tiny folds, basically, that happen in a very random sort of manner. Think about when you push some curtains, or like your shower curtain, to the side. It just sort of randomly falls into those folds as you push it. Pleats are planned folds in specific areas in specific amounts, but that'll be a different video. Now, the first thing we do to set up this larger piece in order to be able to draw it up to meet the smaller one, we use a basting stitch on our sewing machine. So stitch selector position for the needle should be A. Our stitch length, dial that up to the 4. You are going to need your thread tails here at this point. The first set of stitches, I'm going to come in probably about 1/2 inch from my end edge here to start, and 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. No back stitching on this at all. And then on down the long edge. Now, in a factory setting, you may have specialized machines that will do this. You also have specialized presser feet that can do it as well. I prefer this old way of doing it. I can control exactly where my gathers go. Now then, a second row of basting stitches right next to the first, not to cross over, but about 1/8 inch away. Again, starting about the exact same distance from the end. And then we also want to end about 1/2 inch away from this end. One more here. Remember, thread take up lever all the way to the top. Now, in this case, you do want your thread tails at the ends. Okay, here's our, our shorter piece, and we want this longer one to fit it. First thing that we're going to line up is the corner. One corner here, the other corner on the other end. When you sew like a waistband to a gathered skirt, you would have notches along the way, or side seams. Those are other indicators for lining things up. On our sample, we just have our little corners. Okay, I do set my pins in this way because it will allow me to use them kind of like a anchor cleat that if you've ever been boating, you do that with your anchor ropes to hold the boat from drifting away from the deck. All right, I just pull my threads on, like the basting thread that's on the back side here. I do not pull the ones to the front side of my fabric. And as I pull, I can use my thumbnail or thumb to scrunch that fabric down. Okay, and just as I was saying, you kind of wrap this in a figure 8 around that pin, and that kind of holds that in place. I can undo it if I need to pull up some more gathers from this direction. Now that I've done 1/2, I like to go over here and do the other half. This is a small sample, but sometimes on a skirt you may have up to 6 feet to scrunch across here, and so it's much easier to take it in shorter distances from each end rather than all of it from one end. So I want to pull it up so that it's actually the same distance across as my backing piece, 6 inches. And then this side I can lock down by wrapping that thread around my needle or my pin in a figure 8 formation. Now, the last thing I want to do is kind of even out my little bunches and folds, as well as get a pin in here so I keep my raw edges even over here at the sides. All right, back to the sewing machine. At this point, this will now become my permanent stitch across here. I will start at my raw edge over here. I do need to dial this down to the 2.5 stitch length. Now I do not want to stitch through my pin over here, but I do want to get my fabric underneath the needle to start with. Being that this is a permanent stitch, I will back stitch. Go ahead and pull those thread tails on out of the way and on across here. You're going right across these folds. Some people prefer to have the folds underneath, some on top. I like to have them on top because that way if I do notice I have too much kind of bunched together, or that I don't wind up causing a fold going like that and stitch right over it. That happens a lot to me if I sew with these on the bottom. So again, I prefer to go across the top of them just like so, and then out to the other end and back stitching to secure it. Thread take up lever to the top and pull that on out. I will clean up my thread tails. Now because the basting stitch is actually in my seam allowance, I don't necessarily need to pull it out, but as just a nice practice, you can pull those basting stitches out real easy. But there is the gathers from this side. Here we go. Okay, so go ahead and take a photograph of your gathers from this angle.